Imagine finding out your entire marriage ended because your husband got lazy with one text, not a confession, not a fight, not a screaming match, just one sentence, sent to the wrong person. And instead of breaking down, I sent back a photo that made him homeless in under 5 minutes. Stay with me, because what that text exposed wasn't just cheating, it exposed a second life I never knew existed. It was 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic, no argument, no tension, just boring married life. 12 years together. I was upstairs in bed, half reading a book, waiting for my husband to finish a few last work emails in his home office downstairs. He'd kissed my forehead, told me he wouldn't be long, and I remember thinking I should bake him muffins in the morning because he'd been working so hard lately. That's how stupidly normal the night was. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I smiled. Automatically, it was him. Same contact name. Same message thread. I figured he was texting me from downstairs to say goodnight or ask if I wanted tea. I opened it. She's finally asleep. Leaving now. Can't wait to taste you. My brain didn't register it at first. I reread it. Then again, my mind started scrambling for explanations because that's what it does when reality gets too ugly too fast. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe he meant something else. Maybe I was missing context. But there was no context that could save it. She's finally asleep. I was the only she in the house. And leaving now meant he wasn't working. He was waiting for me to stop being conscious so he could sneak out of our life like a thief. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt something colder wash over me, like a switch flipped. I got out of bed and walked to the window. His car is still in the driveway. He hadn't left yet. He was waiting. That's when I realized I had a choice. I could run downstairs and confront him, listen to lies, watch him twist the story until I questioned my own sanity. Or I could skip all of that and end it cleanly before he even made it out the door. I chose the second option. I went straight to the closet and grabbed his two biggest suitcases from the top shelf. I didn't fold anything. I didn't organize. I didn't hesitate. Suits, shirts, underwear, shoes. I swept his entire half of the closet into those bags like I was erasing him. My hands were steady, my heart was racing, but my body felt weirdly calm, like I'd already accepted this was over. As I dragged the suitcases downstairs, I heard him whispering in the office, Yeah, the coast is clear. I'm grabbing my keys now." That sentence erased any last doubt. There was no misunderstanding, no explanation coming that could fix this. It was raining when I opened the front door, a light, miserable drizzle. I dragged the suitcases onto the driveway and dropped them on the wet pavement. Then I grabbed his golf clubs from the garage and tossed those on top, just to make sure the message was clear. I stepped back and took a photo. Flash on. The bags looked like trash waiting for pickup. I went back inside, locked the deadbolt, slid the security chain into place, and walked back upstairs like I hadn't just detonated my marriage. Then I replied to his text. I sent the photo, and I typed, "You're right, she was asleep, but now she's wide awake, and you don't live here anymore." It took less than 30 seconds. The doorknob started shaking, hard, then the doorbell, then pounding so loud it rattled the frame. My phone exploded. "Babe, what is this? Open the door." It was a joke. "It's raining. You're overreacting. You're crazy." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the Ring camera app and watched him on my phone from my bed. He wasn't angry. He wasn't confident. He was panicking. He kept checking his phone between pounding on the door, probably trying to explain to whoever he was supposed to meet why he wasn't showing up. I sent one last message. "Go to her. You're her problem now." Then I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, laid back in the dark, and stared at the ceiling while my husband pounded on his own front door. Realizing the life he built for 12 years just ended because he sent one text to the wrong woman. But here's what I didn't know yet. I didn't know who her was. And when I found out where he actually went that night and who he had been planning his future with, it turned this from a cheating story into something much darker. Because that text wasn't a betrayal. It was just the crack that exposed everything underneath. I didn't sleep that night, not even a minute. I just lay there listening to the rain and the occasional shuffle outside, my body buzzing like it had been plugged into an outlet. Around 12:30 a.m., the pounding stopped. I assumed he finally gave up, maybe called an Uber, maybe drove off to her place. I didn't care which. I just wanted the silence. But when the sun came up, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the Ring app again. He was still there. David was slumped in the driver's seat of his car, parked crooked in the driveway. His head was leaned back, mouth slightly open. The suitcases were still outside, soaked through and collapsed like defeated soldiers. He had slept in his car, on his own driveway, like a stray who got locked out. I should have felt something. Guilt, pity, regret. I felt nothing. I got dressed for work, deliberately choosing one of my sharpest blazers. If I was going to walk past him, I wasn't doing it looking broken. When I opened the front door, he bolted upright like he'd been waiting for movement a lot. "Now please," he said, rushing toward me. His voice cracked. "You have to listen. To me, this isn't what you think. I didn't stop walking, so you didn't text someone that you couldn't wait to taste them." I said calmly, "You didn't wait for me to fall asleep so you could leave." "It was role play," he blurted out. "Online stuff. Fantasy. I swear, I wasn't actually going anywhere." That almost worked. Almost. Because it sounded rehearsed, like he'd practiced it in the car all night. "Then why did you say leaving?" "Now," I asked, "and why were you whispering the coast is clear on the phone?" His face was drained of color. He hadn't known I heard that. "I was talking to the guys," he said weakly. "Poker night." I finally stopped and looked at him. "So, which is it? Online fantasy or poker night? Because you've burned through 2 lies in under a minute." He reached for my arm, panic flooding his face. "Please, don't do this. Let me inside. We'll talk." I stepped back. "Get your bags off my driveway before the HOA finds me. Actually, don't worry about it. You don't live here." I got in my car and drove away. I made it 2 blocks before I pulled over. Because as calm as I looked, my insides were screaming one question. Who was she? At a red light, I logged into our phone carrier account. We'd been on a shared family plan for years. I never checked it because trust makes you lazy. I pulled up the detailed usage logs from the night before. There it was, the message he sent to me at 11:30 and 5 minutes earlier. A rapid-fire exchange with a number I didn't recognize. I copied the number. I Googled it. Nothing. I pasted it into the Cash app. Nothing. Then I tried WhatsApp. A profile popped up instantly and my stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't some random woman. It was Sarah, his ex-girlfriend from college, the one he swore was unhinged, the one he claimed he blocked years ago, the one whose name he rolled his eyes at whenever it came up, the one who sent a wedding gift that he made a dramatic show of throwing in the trash. Apparently, he'd gone back for it. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the call logs. This wasn't a one-night slip. This wasn't even a recent mistake. There were hundreds of calls, thousands of texts, morning calls at 7:30 when he walked the dog, evening calls during his commute, long conversations on nights he told me he was too tired to talk. He hadn't cheated once. He had been living a parallel life. I sat there and cried for exactly 10 minutes. Then I wiped my face, started the car, and called the locksmith. By the time I got home that evening, the locks were changed. His things were gone. The driveway was empty. I thought that was the end of it. Then my phone buzzed. A bank notification. $5,000 withdrawal initiated. My heart slammed into my ribs. I opened the app. The joint account balance had dropped overnight. He hadn't just cheated, he was trying to cripple me, drain the account, force contact, force negotiation. That's when the messages started flooding in, not from him, from his mother. "How could you do this to my son? He's devastated. You're overreacting over a text. Marriage is about forgiveness." I stared at the screen, then replied with one sentence. "He can stay with Sarah." The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I don't know what you're talking about." So I sent her screenshots, the phone logs, the calls, a neat little timeline dot, and then I sent one more image, a call between her and David, 3 days before everything blew up. She blocked me immediately, which told me everything I needed to know. Froze the remaining funds in the account, transferred my personal savings to a new bank, and went into what I can only describe as survival mode. No emotions, no tears, just action. That night, while going through the garage, I found it, a burner phone, taped to the underside of his workbench. I charged it, and that's when I realized the affair with Sarah was only the beginning. because when that phone turned on, I saw things that made my blood run cold. And one message in particular proved he wasn't just cheating on me, he was planning to destroy me. The burner phone felt heavier than it should have, like it knew what it was hiding. When it powered on, I wasn't prepared for how organized it all was. This wasn't a sloppy cheater's phone. This was a system. Folders, apps, hidden inside apps, notifications muted, a whole secret life living inches away from the one we shared. The first thing I opened was the messages. It wasn't just Sarah. If you're watching this story, tighten your blanket and hit the like button so YouTube understands you want the next chapter unlocked. And tell me in the comments, which beautiful country are you watching from? And what's the exact time there right now? So, there wasn't just Sarah. There were dozens of women. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, Instagram, DMS, conversations stacked on top of each other like trophies. Some were flirty, some were explicit, some were disturbingly cold, like transactions, dates scheduled, excuses copied and pasted, the same lies recycled over and over, word for word. Then I saw the photos of me, sleeping curled on my side, face relaxed, completely unaware. Photos of me in the backyard, watering plants, of me on the couch reading, of me cooking dinner. He had been watching me and sending those photos to Sarah. I scrolled, my hands shaking, my stomach burning. Look at her. One message read, "She has no idea. So boring compared to you. Just waiting for the right time to leave her." Then I saw the sentence that changed everything. "I'll leave her with the debt. She won't even know what hit her." I dropped the phone. Cheating was betrayal. This was something else. This was calculated, planned, cruel in a way I didn't know someone who slept next to me could be. I picked the phone back up and kept digging, because at that point I needed to know how bad it really was. Ignorance wouldn't protect me anymore. Checked the email app. Multiple credit card confirmations, cards I had never applied for, limits I didn't recognize, statements sent to a burner email address, my name, my social security number, my forged signature. I logged into a credit monitoring site and pulled my full report. 3 new credit cards, over $40,000 charged, hotels, flights, jewelry, expensive dinners, weekend trips I was told were work conferences. I sat on the kitchen floor and laughed, not because it was funny, but because the alternative was screaming until my lungs collapsed. He wasn't just cheating on me, he was setting me up, bleeding me dry so he could walk away clean with someone else. That cold calm came back, the one that showed up when I packed his bags. I printed everything, screenshots, statements, messages, photos. I made copies, physical copies, digital backups. I emailed everything to myself and stored it on a drive he had never touched. Then I made an appointment with a divorce attorney, the best one in the city. When I sat down in his office, I didn't cry, I didn't ramble. I laid the evidence on his desk like a prosecutor. He leaned back in his chair, whistled quietly, and said, "This isn't just divorce. This is fraud." I told him I didn't just want to leave. I wanted protection. I wanted my name cleared. And I wanted accountability. He smiled in a way that should have scared anyone who wasn't on his side. That afternoon, my phone started blowing up again. Not from David, from people I hadn't spoken to in years, friends, co-workers, even a distant cousin. Apparently, David had started talking, telling his version of the story, how I lost it, how I threw him out over a misunderstanding, how I was emotionally unstable. I didn't defend myself. I let him talk, because liars always talk too much. That night, I got a text from him. "You went through my stuff. You invaded my privacy. You're making this ugly." I didn't reply. The next morning, he showed up at the house again. This time, I watched through the window as he stood on the porch, rehearsing what he was going to say. When I didn't answer, he slipped a note through the mail slot. "I never meant to hurt you. We can fix this. Sarah's nothing. You're blowing this out of proportion." I tore it up and threw it in the trash. Then my lawyer called. He told me something that made my chest tighten. David had been moving money for months, small amounts, carefully spaced. Not enough to trigger alerts. Enough to fund hotel stays, gifts, and a backup plan. Enough to make sure that when he left, I would be stuck cleaning up the mess. This wasn't impulsive, it was strategic. And then came the final punch of the day. My lawyer said, "There's a good chance he thinks he's about to get away with this." That night, I slept for the first time since everything started. Not because I felt safe, but because I knew something David didn't. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. And the next move wasn't mine alone, because once the paperwork was filed and the evidence was submitted, someone else would be knocking on his door, and when they did, Sarah wouldn't be able to hide behind his lies anymore. The paperwork moved faster than I expected. Once fraud enters the conversation, things stop being slow and emotional and start becoming sharp and procedural. My lawyer filed for divorce, citing adultery and financial abuse, and at the same time, he submitted a police report for identity theft, not a threat, not a bluff. Actual documentation with my name at the top and David's actions laid out in black and white. David found out at work. I didn't see it, but I didn't have to. The texts told the story. "What did you do? You called the police. Are you trying to ruin my life? This could cost me my job." That last one almost made me smile. He wasn't worried about me. He wasn't worried about the marriage. He was worried about the consequences. Apparently, 2 uniformed officers had walked into the lobby of his firm and asked for him by name. Not arrested, just questions. But when you work in consulting, perception is everything. Being out by police doesn't exactly scream trustworthy with clients' money. He called me over and over. I let every call go to voicemail. When he finally realized I wasn't answering, the tone changed. "Let's be adults. We can settle this privately. You don't need to involve anyone else. I'll pay you back." A few days later, my lawyer told me Sarah had officially been pulled into it. Because the fraudulent credit cards hadn't just been used on him. They'd been used on her. Trips, jewelry, hotels, gifts, money trails don't care about romance. They care about names and receipts. Sarah was subpoenaed. The deposition was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. I sat across from them in a bland conference room that smelled like burnt coffee and regret. David looked smaller than I remembered, like someone had let the air out of him. Sarah sat beside him, arms crossed, eyes darting around the room like she was looking for an exit. My lawyer laid everything out slowly, methodically. No emotion, just facts. "Ms. Sarah," he said, sliding a stack of papers toward her. "Are you aware that the trip to CABO you took in March was paid for using a credit card opened fraudulently in my client's name?" She blinked. "No, did you?" "No, the diamond earrings you're wearing right now were purchased on that same card." Her hand flew to her ears instinctively, like a reflex she couldn't control. David leaned forward. "She didn't know," he said quickly. "This is on me." My lawyer nodded. "We agree. This is on you." Then he leaned back and delivered the part David wasn't prepared for. "We are offering you a choice. You assume full responsibility for all fraudulent debt. You sign over your equity in the house. You cover my client's legal fees, or we proceed with criminal charges, and my client cooperates fully." David turned to Sarah. His eyes searched her face. He needed her to stand with him, to be the fantasy he destroyed everything for. She stood up instead. "I didn't know he was stealing," she said, voice shaky but clear. "He told me he was separated. He told me it was his money. I'm not going to jail for him." The room went silent. "Sarah," David whispered. "Don't talk to me," she snapped. "You lied to me too." She walked out without looking back. That was the moment his world actually ended. Not when I kicked him out. Not when the police showed up. When the woman he burned his life down for chose herself without hesitation. He signed everything. The house became mine. The debt became his. The legal fees became his problem. And because of the investigation, his firm launched an internal review. Turns out, using company time and resources while committing financial fraud is a career-ending move. 2 weeks later, he was fired. No severance, no quiet exit, just a calendar invite and a security escort. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Because losing everything doesn't teach everyone remorse. For some people, it breeds desperation. And desperation makes people stupid. A few months later, I ran into him by accident. And what he said to me in that grocery store aisle made me realize something chilling. He still thought he was the victim. And he still hadn't learned the most important lesson of all. 6 months passed after the papers were signed, and life didn't explode the way movies promise. It settled quietly. The house felt different without him in it, like the walls had exhaled. I repainted his old office, turned it into a yoga room, filled it with plants and light. Every object that reminded me of him disappeared. Not dramatically, deliberately. My credit score started to recover, slowly, painfully, but it did. The debt was legally his now, every last dollar of it. I kept copies of the court documents in a folder labeled receipts, not because I needed them anymore, but because I liked knowing they existed. I hadn't seen him since the deposition, until I did. It happened in the least cinematic way possible. A grocery store, Tuesday evening, frozen food aisle. I was comparing the brands of pasta when I felt that familiar prickle, the sense of being watched. I looked up. David stood at the end of the aisle holding a single frozen dinner and a sip of cheap beer. No suit, no confidence, just a man shrinking inside his own skin. He looked older, not in a dignified way, in a worn down, chewed up by life way. For a second, he didn't recognize me. Then he did. His eyes widened. He straightened his posture, like muscle memory kicked in, like he was trying to remember how he used to be. He took a step toward me. "Alina," he said softly. "Hey." I felt nothing. No rage, no sadness, just distance. "You look good," he added quickly. "Really good." I smiled. Not a fake one, not a polite one, a genuine, calm smile, the kind you give a stranger. "Take care, David," I said, and I turned my cart down another aisle. That was it. No speech, no closure, conversation, no final confrontation. I later heard through mutual friends that he'd moved into a tiny apartment on the bad side of town, that no consulting firm would touch him with a fraud investigation on his record, that he was working entry-level sales, struggling to keep up with rents. Sar had blocked him the day she walked out of the deposition. She was already dating someone else. Apparently, she told people she'd dodged a bullet. I almost laughed when I heard that Dottie's mother sent me a birthday card a few weeks later. She wrote that she missed me and hoped I was well. I returned it unopened. But here's the twist nobody expects. I kept the photo, one of his bags on the driveway. I printed it, framed it, and hung it in my laundry room. Not because I'm bitter, not because I'm angry, but because it reminds me of the moment I chose myself without hesitation. The moment I didn't beg for answers or wait for permission to walk away. Whenever I feel lonely, whenever I questioned whether I was too harsh, whenever I catch myself romanticizing the past, I look at that photo and I remember the text. "She's finally asleep." I remember how wrong he was, because I wasn't asleep. I was awake, enough to see the red flags, awake enough to protect myself, awake enough to burn the bridge before he could push me off it. And that's the real karma. Not that he lost everything, but he lost it because he underestimated the woman sleeping upstairs. If you ever get that wrong number, text. Don't argue. Don't negotiate. Don't ask for explanations that were never meant to be honest. Pack the bags, send the photo, and let the trash take itself out. If this story hit a nerve, hit the like button so more people see it. Subscribe if you want real stories where karma actually shows up on time. And tell me in the comments, would you have packed the bags immediately, or would you have confronted him face to face? Either way, stay awake, because the signs are always there, and the moment you stop ignoring them is the moment your life gets better. And here's something no one tells you about winning like this. It's not loud, there's no cheering crowd, no dramatic music, no standing ovation when karma finally lands. It's quiet, almost boring, and that's how you know it's real. A few weeks after that grocery store run-in, I got an email notification from my credit monitoring service. My score jumped again. Not all the way back yet, but enough to feel like progress. Enough to feel like I was officially outrunning the version of my life he tried to sabotage. Deleted the notification without celebrating. Because peace doesn't need applause. What surprised me most wasn't how badly his life collapsed. It was how quickly mine stopped revolving around him. One day I realized I hadn't checked his social media in months, hadn't wondered who he was with, hadn't replayed arguments in my head. The space he used to occupy in my thoughts had been quietly reclaimed. That's when I knew I was done. A mutual friend later told me David still talks about me, still tells anyone who will listen that I overreacted. that I went nuclear over a text, that if I'd just talked to him, things could have been different. Apparently, in his version of reality, the fraud, the burner phone, the debt, the lies, all of that is just context people don't understand that used to make me angry. Now it just makes me tired. Because here's the truth he'll never say out loud. He wasn't sorry he cheated. He was sorry he got caught before he could finish the plan. And that's the part I want every person watching this to hear clearly. If I had confronted him that night instead of packing his bags, if I had cried, argued, demanded answers, if I had given him time to prepare, I would have been destroyed financially. That burner phone would have disappeared. Those accounts would have been drained quietly. That narrative about me being unstable would have stuck. The photo wasn't revenge, it was self-defense sometimes. The most powerful move isn't yelling, it's acting before the liar can rewrite the story. I still keep that framed photo in the laundry room, not as a trophy, as a reminder that the moment you feel your stomach drop is not the moment to doubt yourself, it's the moment to move. People love to say, I'd want closure. But closure is a luxury cheaters don't deserve. Truth doesn't always come wrapped in explanations. Sometimes it shows up as a text that was never meant for you. And when it does, your job isn't to understand it. Your job is to protect yourself. So if you're watching this and something feels off in your relationship, if excuses don't line up, if stories change, if your intuition keeps tapping you on the shoulder, don't ignore it. Being chill and understanding doesn't save you from people who are planning exits behind your back. Pay attention, check the details, and never underestimate how fast your life can improve once you stop carrying someone who was already halfway out the door. If this story made you feel seen, hit like so it reaches the next person who needs it. Subscribe if you want more real stories where accountability actually shows up. And drop a comment, not about him, but about you. Would you have sent the photo? Because once you do, there's no going back. And honestly, that's the point.